Good day, grade 9. So this is a pre-recorded lesson on the topic transformation of functions. So for the learning outcomes of this lesson, you should be able to describe, illustrate, and visualize how graphs of function may be transformed. So dito sa Math 3, we will tackle the different types of transformation. Particularly, we have here translation, compression stretching, or what you call dilation, and reflection. So just like transformations in geometry, what we have done during our first quarter, we can also move and resize the graphs of our functions. And here, what we are going to learn is the graph of our basic equations, or what you call parent functions. So parent functions are basic equations where the graph is free from any transformation. So it is important for us to be able to sketch the graphs of this parent function from memory. And the following basic graphs will be extensively used for this topic. So first parent function, you have here f of x equals x, and that is just your straight line passing through the origin. So f of x is equal to x is also called the identity function. Next one, you have the basic parabola. F of x is equal to x squared, and the graph of this parabola is this one, wherein the vertex is at the origin. Next type of function is the square root function. F of x is equal to square root of x, wherein the graph is this one. The x and y intercept is located at the origin, and it is an increasing function. Next one, from our math 2, you have the absolute value function. F of x is equal to the absolute value of x. Take note of the absolute value symbol used. And the shape of the graph is letter V, wherein this point right here is your vertex. Next, you have also the parent function of a cubic one. F of x is equal to x cubed. So the graph of it is this one. The basic rational function f of x is equal to 1 over x, wherein the vertical asymptote is at the y-axis and the horizontal asymptote is at the x-axis. And for the last type of parent function, you have what you call the floor function, which is denoted by this symbol. So the floor function, also known as the greatest integer function, gives us the largest integer, which is less than or equal to x. So for example, I want to find f of 2.5, okay? So my notation would be this one. So what is the floor function for 2.5? So it says that the output should be the largest integer less than or equal to x. So the largest integer less than or equal to 2.5 is equal to 2. Okay? So essentially that is your floor function. And if we try to graph your floor function, it looks like this one. So in other textbook, it is also called as the step function. Okay, so now that we know the basic graphs of this parent function, now we are ready to see how certain transformations can be applied to change the graph of those parent functions. So this will give us a better idea of how to quickly sketch the graph of certain complex functions. And once again, we are going to talk about three types of transformations here: translation, reflection, and dilation. So let's start with the big picture. So if we combine all those transformations, then we can transform a very basic function in this form that will look like this one. Okay, so you have here variables a, b, c, and d. And these variables represent different types of transformation. So for A, that is for vertical dilation. For B, horizontal dilation. C, horizontal translation. And D is for vertical translation. So let's talk about first translation. The keywords here is that if you are going to translate a graph, you are just moving it or sliding the curve. So there is a change in position. However, there is no change in the size of the graph. And there are two types of movement here. It can be horizontal shift or vertical shift. So example of vertical translation. Let's say we have here a parent function. This is your parent function, the green one, f of x is equal to x squared. So the graph of this is shown here on the screen. And we have additional two functions, g of x and h of x. So g of x is equal to x squared plus 2, while h of x is equal to x squared minus 2. So as you can see, there are additional values here compared to your parent function. Okay? So if we are talking about vertical translation, our graph either moves up or moves down. And the change of this function is represented by the value of d. Okay? So from f of x, yung ating transformed function ay of this form, f of x plus or minus d. Okay? So if d is greater than 0, then the function moves up by d units. If d is less than 0, meaning negative, the function moves down by d units. So ang ibig sabihin niyan, since g of x is equal to f of x plus 2, so ibig sabihin, my d here is positive 2. Since d is greater than 0, then the function moves up. So what does that imply in the graph? So starting with our green parent function, we will move 2 units upward. Okay, so from this vertex, 2 units upward, then we arrive at our g function. So from the green one, tumaas tayo ng 2 units because of this additional plus 2 here in the given equation. On the other hand, h of x, we have here a d equals negative 2. This is less than 0. Therefore, we will move down by 2 units. Okay, so starting from the green parent function, we move down 2 units. Okay, so h of x is the blue parabola. For the horizontal translation, so consider again 3 functions here, wherein the green one is your parent function. And for g of x, we have here the quantity x minus 2 squared. For h of x, we have here the quantity x plus 2 squared. Okay? So the graph of the blue one is shown here and the red one is here. So in horizontal translation, we either move the parent function to the left or to the right. And this transformation is represented by the variable c. Okay? So if we have here x minus c, then the function should move to the right by c units. And if our output or input is x plus c, then the function will move to the left. So for example, for g of x, we have here x minus 2. So minus 2, therefore we move 2 units to the right. Okay, so that's why from the green parent function, to obtain the red one, we move 2 units to the right. Okay, and for h of x, you have here x plus 2. Therefore, by the rule, this is movement 2 units to the left. That's why from the green one, we moved 2 units to the left. Okay? So that's for horizontal translation and vertical translation. So what happens to the domain and range of translated functions? So if we look at the vertical translation, the domain of the transformed functions remain the same. So walang pagbabago sa ating domain. However, if you look at the range, so the range of the green function and the red one and the blue one, so they are different from one another. Therefore, vertical translation affects our range. On the other hand, if meron tayong horizontal translation, the domain of which is affected, however, the range is not affected. So this is our basic table that we used to determine the changes for our domain and range. So exercises for translation. Item number 1, describe how the graph of G is obtained from the graph of F. So again, F here are your parent functions and the G functions here are the transformed one. So we are going to describe kung anong klaseng transformation or translation ang nangyari. Okay? So for letter A, since this is of the form f of x, okay, plus minus d. So we have here identified d is equal to plus square root of 2. Therefore, we can say that g of x is a transformation of f of x, wherein f of x is shifted to square root of 2 units upward. Okay? So there is a vertical translation. For item B, so this is of the form f of x plus minus c. Okay? So since we have here x minus square root of 2, therefore, there is a movement to the right ba or to the left? So if babalikan natin ito, x minus c moves the function to the right. So there is a movement square root of 2 units to the right. Okay? So that's how you identify the type of translation based on the given equations. For item number 2, the graph of f of x is given. Consider the function g of x equals f of x plus 2. So describe in words how the g of x is related to the function f of x. So kung ito yung parent function natin, then ito yung description natin for the transformation. So meron tayong f of x plus 2. So kumbaga ito ay f of x plus c. So again, if we have this format, this is a horizontal translation. And since this is plus, this is c units to the left. Okay? So since c equals 2, we move 2 units to the left. Okay? So the transformed graph will look like this one. So this point right here will move to this point. This point right here will move to this. This one will move dito. And ito ay dito. Okay? So if I draw my transformed graph, so ganito yung magiging itsura. Okay? So the blue one is the transformed graph. So I think we have answered items A and B. For item 4, write a formula for the function g that results when the graph of f of x is transformed as described. Without solving, what is the domain and range of g? Okay, so our parent function for item A is this one, and we are going to shift it 2 units upwards. Okay, so for item A, our g of x would be square root of x plus 2. And for item B, so this is your parent function, we are going to shift it 5 units to the left. So my g of x would be the quantity x plus 5 squared. Okay? So papalitan natin yung x dito ng x plus 5. Kaya naka-square yung buong expression. So hindi pwedeng x squared plus 5. So this is wrong. Okay? So without solving, what is the domain and range of g of x? So pwede nating balikan yung table. However, we can graph this naman, no? So using our knowledge on the graph of parent functions, so sinabi natin kanina that the graph of square root of x looks like this one, no? So ibig sabihin ng g of x natin, so mag-move tayo ng 2 units upward. So 1, 2. So ibig sabihin, ito yung g of x natin. Okay? So f of x, g of x. So based on this graph, pwede nating ma-determine yung domain and range. So domain of g of x. So lahat ng positive x values. So that's from 0 to positive infinity. The range of your g of x. So nag-start tayo sa y equals 2. And then going up. So 2 to positive infinity. Okay? For item B, so again, we graph our parent function. So ang parent function naman natin dito ay x squared. So that is your basic parabola. Okay? And we are going to shift this parabola 5 units to the left. Okay, so using my blue ink, so I will move this vertex 5 units to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So nandito yung bago nating vertex. And dito natin ito-drawing yung parabola. Okay? So ano yung domain and range ng parabola na yan? So for the domain, so take note, since we are talking about parabola, then the domain is still all real numbers. And the range, so get the minimum value. So saan natin makukuha yung minimum value? Sa ating vertex. Okay? So the range would be from 0 to positive infinity. Okay? So that is how you determine the equations of transformed functions plus their domain and range. Okay, so I will stop here for this video and next video itutuloy natin sa reflection.